Hi, I'm Steve from Sounds Heavenly. As you may have noticed here, we've got Bang & Olufsen's new Beolab 8 loudspeakers. These have been my everyday music system for the past few weeks, so in this video I'm going to give you the full lowdown on what they are, what they're capable of, the 3 essential things you need to know to hear them at their best, and finally we're going to talk price. Please come and join me. Now firstly, I've got to offer a huge thank you to Bang & Olufsen for kindly sending out these loan samples in advance of the release date so that I can give you a proper considered review. And not only that, as you may have noticed, they have colour matched them to my existing Bang & Olufsen system. So this is a 1990 Beosystem 3500. Bang & Olufsen have kindly sent out black aluminium speakers with the natural oak grille to match my custom made wood cabinet. I hope that shows well on the video, but in the flesh this is actually a really good colour match. And if you ever needed confirmation that new and classic Bang & Olufsen blend in perfectly together, then look no further. Over the past few weeks, these speakers have been on duty in a variety of positions and situations around the home. They've been used in my workshop, in the kitchen, in the bedroom, in the living room. They've been used via wired power link with this system. They've been used with a Bang & Olufsen television. They've been used as rear surround speakers with my home cinema system and as PC speakers. So as a result of all the testing I've carried out, I'm going to follow up in the next few weeks with a full deep dive into connectivity to explain how to use these speakers with absolutely any audio or video product, whether that be new or old Bang & Olufsen or any other brand of music or AV system. In the meantime, if you've got any questions about using Beolab 8 with your audio or video setup, please drop me a line at soundsheavenly.com and I'll be happy to help. So, what's all the fuss about? Well, Beolab 8 follows on from Bang & Olufsen's previous compact speakers, Beolab 17, and before those Beolab 3. However, they significantly raised the game in terms of technology. As with all of B&O's speakers over the past 3 years or so, they use their new Mozart software platform, which gives them native support for a huge range of streaming technologies, including Spotify Connect, Deezer, Tidal, AirPlay 2, Chromecast, Bluetooth 5.3 with Bluetooth Low Energy, and also ultra-wideband technology, which we'll come to in detail later in the video. As well as that, they have Wiser, which is B&O's wireless power link, wired power link via an RJ45 socket, and a USB-C audio input, which can either give a stereo analog input or, as I mentioned earlier, be used directly with a PC, and in that case the computer will auto-configure and accept these as the native speakers for the PC. Now, there is just over 4 kilos per speaker. These feel as if they're hewn from solid aluminium. Despite that, they are surprisingly compact. They measure from frontal aspect about the same dimensions as an A4 sheet of paper, roughly 19 by 29 centimetres. Shown here with the standard table mount, this has 2 positions. As I'm using it here, it angles upwards at about 15 degrees, or it can be adjusted to mount horizontally. There are also options of an adjustable floor stand and a wall bracket with a ceiling mount to follow soon, apparently. All of those mounting options fit via the same wishbone adapter on the back of the speaker, which simply pinches and unclips. So this allows connection to any of the stand options. Now it must be said the fit and finish are absolutely superb, as you would expect with Bang & Olufsen, but even so, I think these significantly raise the game compared even to B&O's existing compact speakers such as Beosound Balance. The glass top touch panel is a pleasure to use. The finish of the wood grills and the aluminium are exemplary. As with the mounts, the grille is easy to remove, it simply unclips, and it can be changed to a range of wood lamellas or cloth frets. And underneath you see a little more of what makes these speakers tick. So Beolab 8 is a three-way speaker. It has a 5¼ inch bass driver, a 3-inch mid-range and a 0.6-inch treble driver or tweeter, each fed by its own dedicated Class D digital amplifier. 200 watts for the bass and 50 watts each for the mid and treble. Now this speaker interestingly has wide and narrow sound modes, as you will see on the Beolab 28, its bigger brother. However, Beolab 8 doesn't have any side or rear facing speaker drivers like Beolab 28. So how does it give wide mode? We'll come into that in detail later on, but it's very interesting to see how Bang & Olufsen have quite effectively given a wide dispersion pattern and a wide stereo effect using only front-facing speaker drivers. If you're correctly positioned equally between the two speakers in a traditional stereo setup, the narrow mode is probably your best option. It's a traditional stereo sound and gives you pinpoint accuracy for the soundstage, so you can close your eyes and hear exactly where on the stage each musician is positioned. However, if you're sat with a group of friends along a couch and you want everyone to hear the music at its best, the wide mode is really effective at spreading the sound so that everyone hears it at its best. You still get stereo imaging, but just with a little bit of precision loss compared to narrow mode. Also, if you use these behind you as rear surrounds in a movie setup, then the wide mode is incredible and it gives a real sense of immersion. At the time of filming, Bang & Olufsen had not confirmed the frequency response of the speakers. However, my own in-room testing has given results with bass down to around about 29 Hertz, which is quite incredible for speakers this small. That's approaching infrasonic levels where you start to feel the air pressure in your chest cavity as well as hearing it directly through your ears. So these are not far off the performance of their big brother Beolab 28 at low to medium listening levels. Basically, if you've heard Beolab 17, their predecessor, and you like the sound, I think you're going to love Beolab 8. They've got broadly similar sound output and performance, but the addition of room compensation, which, if you've not heard it, allows the speaker to emit very similar to a submarine sonar tone, listen to the echoes coming back from the room, and then adapt their sound accordingly. It absolutely transforms the way that the speakers perform and allows them to sound superb even in the most challenging of audio environments. As an example, I've used these on a kitchen counter underneath overhanging cabinets where normally the sound would become boomy and echoey. Run the room compensation, it's crystal clear, nice, clean, tight bass again. So it absolutely transforms the way that the speakers can be used and makes them far more flexible and usable. I mentioned the ultra wideband technology. That's a new tech that's enabled on the latest iPhones, iPhone 11 and above, and once that's activated, I've not had a chance to test it yet, but that will follow in a future video. What it does is it allows each speaker to measure the distance apart and also to measure the distance from each speaker to your phone. So once the speakers know where they are in the room, they know where you are in the room, they adjust the timing and the volume of the sound from each speaker so that you get perfect stereo imaging even if you're sat off to one side of the speakers. So that's something we'll cover in a later video. So if you like the idea of Beolab 8 and you're interested in going to hear them for yourself, which actually I'd strongly recommend, I mentioned there are 3 things that you need to know to get the best from them. And that's what we'll cover now. Firstly, nice and simple, wherever you're hearing the speakers, ask the person who's demonstrating them to let you have access to the Bang & Olufsen app. Now, what this will let you do is run the room compensation. And whilst you might assume that's already been done, you may find the speakers have just been moved to another position ready for you to hear them. So I'd really encourage you to press the button in the app to run the compensation again. It's interesting to hear that tone and see how the speakers change their sound. And once that's been done, you know that the speakers are then calibrated for the room and their environment, and you can then enjoy the sound at its best. Now, secondly, I should mention what I think of as the dual personality of B&O's Mozart speakers. It's common to all of the speakers using this software platform, but I think it's actually quite pronounced with Beolab 8. And that is that for the first 60% or so of the volume scale, they're in what I refer to as audiophile mode. They give a bass depth which is absolutely stunning for their size. They give a sweet mid-range, crystal clear highs, and they are a true hi-fi speaker. Go above about 60% on the volume dial and they go into what I think of as party mode. Now, at this sort of high volume, you can't expect a small speaker to give 30 Hertz and below in bass, so the speaker backs off the deepest bass to avoid damage. You still get your regular bass coming through, the mid-range is clear, and the treble is nice and hard and punchy, so it's perfect for dancing to. So it's worth knowing about this twin personality when you're listening to them, because if your first thought when you go into a store to hear them is to turn the volume to 100%, then you need to be aware that whilst they'll still give great sound, they're not giving that really super deep bass, which is one of their greatest achievements. When you bring the volume back down below about 60%, then they're transformed. That's when they're really at their best. Obviously, there's nothing wrong with winding them up to 70, 80, 90, 100% for a party once in a while, safe in the knowledge that the thermal protection and audio changes in the speaker software will prevent them being damaged. But if you need, in my suggestion, to turn them above about 50 to 60% in everyday use, that's where you need to consider that you're taking them out of their best use case. That's where they're going into party mode. So possibly, if you're listening at, say, 65, 70% in everyday use, that's where you really need bigger speakers. Personally, 40 to 45% is actually loud for me, so I'm well within that hi-fi listening zone, and they sound incredible. But once you're aware of how this works, I think you're equipped to make the correct decision on whether these have got the volume that you need. Now, if you want to hear this difference for yourself, I'd recommend you have a listen. I can't believe I'm saying this. I don't recommend this song, but the song to show this transformation is Call Me Maybe by Carly Rae Jepsen. Not my usual choice of music, but as it goes from the verse into the first chorus, if you're at, say, 50% volume in that hi-fi zone, then you'll hear the bass drop an octave and you get that depth that I've never heard in a speaker this small before. However, listen to that same track at, say, 65, 70% volume, you'll still get the depth of the bass drum kicking as it does from the start, but then in the chorus, the bass won't drop to that sub-bass level. That's where it's protecting the speaker and giving you that party mode at the higher volume. So once you've heard that difference, hopefully that will help you to understand whether it's the right speaker for you. And thirdly, I mentioned the wide and narrow options which are available to be switched freely between in the B&O app. It's really useful to understand what they are and what they do, because that's critical really to getting the best from them for your use case. As I mentioned, narrow mode is the default. It's what you would normally have with a regular hi-fi stereo setup. It gives you pinpoint accuracy for sound between the the stereo sound stage left to right. You can hear this really well with a mono drum track. In narrow mode, it will appear as though the whole drum kit comes from a point exactly in the middle between the two speakers. In wide mode, it will actually sound as though you've got two drum kits, one coming out the left speaker and one coming out the right speaker. When you go to a stereo track, the narrow mode gives you that exact accuracy. The vocalist and the bass will come straight from the middle. All the rest of the instruments will be spread across left to right. Turn to wide mode now, you'll still have the vocalist in the centre, but not with that same pinpoint accuracy. And it will sound as though the rest of the music is spread from a space that expands beyond where the speakers are positioned in the room. It makes them feel much bigger and much further apart within the room. So this is great if you have to place the speakers close together. As I mentioned earlier, it's great if you could be listening off to one side, or if you've got a group of friends with you. And it's brilliant if the speakers are behind you, because it makes surround sound effects really, really immersive in a movie. So how on earth do B&O do this without any side-facing or rear-facing speaker drivers? It's quite clever, really. The first thing that happens is they boost what sound engineers refer to as the presence band, which is about 2.5 kilohertz to 5 kilohertz. It's that the sibilance in the spoken voice, and it's the crash of a cymbal on drum kit. And what that does is that helps your ears locate sound. So by boosting those pitches, you very slightly change the tone of the sound, but also it allows a bit of extra sound processing so that it feels as though each speaker cabinet is bigger and further apart than it really is. If you're sitting off to one side of a traditional stereo speaker setup, it tends to feel as though the sound collapses towards the nearest speaker. And that's the case if you listen here in narrow mode, but over to one side. Switch to wide mode now, and the stereo sound is restored. You get that feeling of a stereo spread of sound again. So it really is clever and has to be heard to be really understood. So on to the issue that I think will cause the most debate in the comments, and that is the price. Now these are not cheap loudspeakers, as I would expect from the quality. They start at £4,398 per pair in the UK, with cloth grills and the table stand that's shown here. This version, as tested, would retail in the UK at £5,398. But let me give you a little bit of context that might change your view on that. In everyday use, up to in-room sound pressure levels of about 80 decibels, which for me is way above regular listening levels, these are almost indistinguishable from their £12,750 big brother Beolab 28. So I would suggest for the majority of people who are considering saving up for or aspire to Beolab 28, this is probably all the speaker you will ever need, at almost a third of the price when you consider the cloth grill version. Now I mentioned that these are the successors to Beolab 17 and before that Beolab 3. So what would those speakers have cost in 2023 if you adjusted for inflation? Well, Beolab 3 back in 2009 cost £2,550 per pair. Bring that forward on the Bank of England's inflation calculator in the UK and you'd be looking at £3,869 per pair today. However, to get anywhere near the capabilities of Beolab 8, you'd need to add another £849 for Beosound Core, B&O's separate music streamer. That gives you a price in 2023 terms for Beolab 3 of £4,718 to make them a match for Beolab 8. Beolab 17 cost £3,110 in 2017, so that equates to £3,952 today. Obviously that again doesn't include streaming options, so add on the Beosound Core and you're looking at £4,801. So both of those speakers in real terms today would be right in the middle between the cloth grill Beolab 8 price and the wood grill price. So hopefully that puts the cost in a different perspective, but please let me know in the comments what you think. So as I mentioned at the start, there's a series of videos following up soon, including a deep dive into the connectivity to let you use these with absolutely anything. But please get in touch in the meantime if you've got any questions about these speakers, what they can do and how you can use them with your existing setup. You can reach me at soundsheavenly.com, and please subscribe to the channel. You'll be the first to hear when the next video is ready. Thank you for watching.